April 20th, 12:14 PM, District Court, Courtroom number 2. Hello everyone, Triple back as more Apologist Ace Attorney, and it's all a little bit different now than in the past games. We're obviously playing as Apollo Justice, but there's Phoenix Wright, who's no longer a lawyer, who has a daughter, and is being accused of murder, and it's like, what? So, let's jump in and see if Olga Really's back to normal again after she fainted and stuff. See how it goes. Court will now reconvene. Not court. Court. Has our witness, Miss Olga, really recovered? Yes, Your Honour. Well, she's regained consciousness. Perhaps we can hear her version of the events again. That's the thing, you see, she's quite fatigued. You're looking a bit fatigued yourself, Mr. Payne. Sadly, fatigue is insufficient grounds for refusing to testify or prosecute. The defence would like to request that Miss O'Reilly take the stand. Very well, the witness will take the stand. Perhaps you could repeat your name and profession? ... Or perhaps you'd rather admit that you're a poor liar and a poorer loser. Not. Dun dun dun. Name's Olga O'Reilly. That's the truth, I'm a pro dealer. People call me Olga Quick Fingers O'Reilly. Oh really? Want to know something else? I'm not really Russian, and my last name sounds like O'Reilly. There, that's the truth. Hope you're satisfied. Witness, you will tell the court what you were really up to that night. Fine, I'll talk. We had a plan, see? Let me remind you that you are currently under oath. Any further fabrications will have serious consequences. Fine. Like I said, I'm a pro. That guy Smith hired me to do what I do best. I was planted at the Borscht Bowl Club several days prior to the night of the game. As a waitress. So you're in cahoots with the victim. Not that he needed my help. Smith is a well-known poker player in some circles. But winning wasn't the main purpose of this game. It was about destroying a legend, the unbeatable Phoenix Wright. The plan was simple, elegant really. You see, we set up a trap of sorts. I was to plant a card in Wright's pocket beforehand, and then deal 5 aces during one of their games. When their hands were revealed, Smith would call him out and search Wright. He would then pull out the planted card and the trap would snap shut. You swapped the cards! Exposed as a cheater and losing on top of it, it would have made a great double play. Just like that, the legend would be dashed to pieces. Indeed, it's very similar parallels to... wow. Getting caught red-handed at cheating would cast doubt on all his prior wins. 7-year legend destroyed by one little card. That was the plan. Oh really? How droll. But it appears you made quite the mistake. A mistake? I agree the trap was elegant. Yet what happened to that planted card? Hey, that's right. He's lucky, I'll give him that. You'd have to be to slip free from a trap laid by Olga Quickfingers O'Reilly. Oh really? Witness would be much cuter if she dispensed with the evil mastermind shtick. Cute? Who wants to be cute? I'm not cute, I'm bad. You hear me? Bad. When you're through being bad, perhaps you could testify to the court. Tell us about this trap and how it was sprung. The best laid traps. That night I planted the card like I was supposed to. And Wright lost the last hand just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed. The next moment, Wright picked up a bottle and swung it. It wasn't me who hit Smith, it was that no-good cheating defendant. Surprisingly frank testimony that still leaves us mostly in the dark. The trap was perfect, I tell you, perfect, if that rotten cheater hadn't messed it up. Look who's talking. Well, the testimony, for what it's worth, is all yours, Mr. Justice. With witnesses like her, who needs criminals? And with defendants like Mr. Wright, who needs prosecutors? Okay, so we press everything. The best laid traps. That night I planted the card I was supposed to press. This planted card, which card was it exactly? The trump card, the 5 of hearts. Let me guess, Mr. Wright was to have switched to 5 with the ace to make a full house. At least that's what you were going to accuse me of doing, thereby ruining his legend. I slid it into Wright's pocket. When was this? Why, before the match, of course, while he was eating. The Borscht Bowl Club, we serve borscht and suckers. Remind me never to go there. Of course, the card was to make its grand debut during the game. Like a good borscht, a good plot must be cooked up early and allowed to thicken. And Wright lost the hand, just like he was supposed to. So everything went according to plan. Exactly. The 5th ace came up, so it's obvious the switch went off without a hitch. Once the extra card was found in his pocket, Wright would be forever known as a cheat and a fraud. There are worse things to be known as, I suppose. Tell us what happened with the search. The planted card was gone, traffic on press. The card disappeared? Yeah, my trump card, the 5 of hearts. Gone. Without a trace. Poof, zippo. We searched every nook and cranny, even inside his cute little hat. But the card was nowhere to be found, is this correct? Never in my long, storied career. Never has quick fingers or really been so readily duped. Oh really? So what did happen to that 5 of hearts? Don't look at me. Why don't you ask that cheating, lying, two-faced defendant? The 5 of hearts is still missing in action. The next moment, Wright picked up a bottle and swung it at press. Wait, isn't that a little odd? Well, what's odd? You searched Mr. Wright thoroughly and found nothing? Which means he didn't cheat, which means he had no reason to strike the victim. Well... Oh, what was that? Yeah, what was that just now? I sensed something. Something wrong, Mr. Justice? No, nothing, Your Honour. What to do? Should I press her a little harder? Press harder. So really, you're hiding something. What are you talking about? You... Me? Quick fingers are really hiding something? The defence will refrain from baseless accusations. I have one question for the witness then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is this true? Of course it's true. I did see it, honest. I saw it when Wright hit him. There it is again. With my own eyes, I saw it. What's this weird vibe I'm getting? That witness, for instance, Miss O'Reilly, she would touch the back of her neck during certain parts of her testimony. Did you notice? Touching her neck, was it? This is doing it by itself at the moment. Whoa, what's going on? Can I click? There we go. The sensation is coming into focus. There, that twitch. It's so clear. It's like I could perceive her habit like I couldn't before. We hit perceive. Miss O'Reilly, perhaps you are unaware of this yourself. Unaware of what? Whenever you get to a certain part of your testimony, you touch the back of your neck with your left hand. My neck? So what? What indeed, Justice? I hadn't noticed anything of the sort. When she says that part of the testimony, she's subconsciously recalling something. Her body reacts to the memory, and she touches her neck. I'm sure of it. A memory? Would someone care to explain what he's babbling about? This is highly unusual, but let's ask the defence. You claim the witness is remembering something. Maybe you have evidence of this memory to show us. Her habit is scratching her neck whenever she talks about the moment of the crime. So what would remind her most of the moment of the crime? Miss O'Reilly, whenever you recall the crime that night, you scratch your neck. I've noticed it happens when you think about the moment of the crime. There must be some reason behind this habit of yours. I believe the weapon that left an inerasable impression on your neck is this. Inerasable, wow. The deadly bottle. Whenever she talks about the moment of the crime, she touches her neck. And what reminds us more of that moment than this bottle, the murder weapon? But something doesn't fit. If you were only the witness to the crime, why would that make you touch your neck like you're in pain? What's he talking about now? It was Mr. Smith, the victim, who was hit. Not you. This is a cross-examination, not a crosswell conjecture. The witness's habits, they're completely irrelevant. Justice, I'll admit, I'm a bit confused myself. This is certainly a unique cross-examination. I'll explain later. Just trust me. Now's our only chance to break her. Miss O'Reilly, please testify in detail about the moment of the crime. The very moment. Yet, I am knowing nothing. We know you're not Russian. The witness will testify, please, now. Bah, fine. He's the one who did it. I didn't let him out of my sight until the cops got there. Press. You seem uneasy. You try sitting up here. Her eyes are darting all over the place. I must be getting warm. Tell me, after the crime, what was the defendant like? Well, he must have been stunned by the weight of his crime. He sat in a daze at that table until the cops came. Intriguing. I believe you've gotten all the testimony you're going to get out of this witness. So what do you think about her testimony? I'll tell you what I think. Her testimony is flawed. It's basically bogus. It contradicts the evidence. What's that? Well, show us this evidence, Mr. Justice. This evidence that you claim contradicts the testimony. She didn't let him out of her sight until the cops got there. You know, there's some evidence that contradicts that. His phone. Miss O'Reilly, we have a record here that clearly contradicts what you said. It states that the police were alerted by a report from the defendant. Eh? And we know that the defendant left the room, climbed the stairs, and made that phone call from the first floor of the Borscht Bowl Club. Ah! So explain how you kept your eyes on the defendant when he left the room entirely. Ah! She's a unique character that she gets a lot of different things. She has two freak-out things. The man who picked up a bottle and swung it that night wasn't the defendant. Nope, cutscene time. Spider! Showdown time. You dirty cheat! Check his pockets, now! It's gone! The card's gone! You lose. Ah! Just then, Smith grabbed the bottle from next to right, and he hit me! You! Some master of cheating you turned out to be. Eek! When I came to, the victim was already dead. Is that it? That's why I couldn't reveal who I really was. If it came out that I was in league with Smith, I'd be a suspect for sure. Da-da-da. 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 Well, where does this leave us? Madness, this is madness, I'm dreaming. Must have been me who was hit with a bottle and imagining all of this. It appears our prosecution is at his wit's end, and frankly, I can't blame him. Mr. Gavin, what do you think about this turn of events? Da-da-da. Mr. Gavin, sir? I believe that, as the defence in this case, we are compelled to call Miss O'Reilly a big fat liar. What? Three were in that room the night of the murder, the defendant, victim and her. And she has a motive. Her motive? Her plot foiled, the witness got into an argument with her client, Mrs. Smith. And the denouement of that argument was murder. What? I'm no killer. It's a trap. Someone's trying to frame me. What tangled webs we weave when we practice to deceive. So tangled we catch ourselves in the process. Mr. Wright? Such a hasty conclusion, sorry. It's not like you, Christoph Gavin. What are you saying? Why not consider the other possibility? That there was another person in the room at the time of the murder. Right, like Mr. Wright was saying before recess. A single card was swapped into the victim's hand after the murder, and the one who swapped the card didn't know two colours of cards were being used. A fourth person. Ha! This theory again. Your fourth person doesn't exist. Indeed. That's why I decided to bring this case to court. Here, where there's no escape and no chance for deception, the perfect place to catch the real criminal. The real criminal? And we're in luck. A clue to the real criminal's identity was kindly provided for us. And right at the beginning of the trial, no less. What? Apollo, perhaps you know what I'm talking about. Sorry. Remember what I said. The fourth person who swapped the cards made one critical error. He or she wasn't considering the colour on the backs of the cards. Right. But how could such an obvious mistake occur? The cards used for the last game were red. Yet, there is one person here, in our court, who thought those cards were blue. Yeah, I had that impression too, but why? Well, Apollo, think you can figure out who it was? It's not me, I swear! Who is this fourth person? Why do I always get put on the spot like this? Let's hear what the defence has to say. Who was it? Who thought the cards used in the final game were blue? This guy. As I expected. Your eyes and ears are as sharp as your hair. I was right. Christoph Gavin, you were the fourth person that night. But of course Mr. Gavin knows the colour of the cards. How would he? As you can see, the photo of the crime scene is black and white, for some reason. You can't tell which of the cards were blue, the ones on the floor or the table. But look, you can see the colours in this photo. Yes, but when he said the cards were blue, it was well before this evidence came to light. It is true that the defendant was engaged in a game of poker with the victim. It was only that, a game, in the purest sense. A competition, Your Honour. A competition? Yet, a test of wits, a silent clash of passions. Under the cards, their backs wreathed in blue flame, know its final outcome. Well, Christoph. ... Mr. Gavin? Mr. Gavin, is something the matter? Huh? No, nothing. Excuse me, it was just so sudden. Right, you aren't seriously accusing me, are you? Oh, Christoph? You know even I'd never take a joke this far. This has gone beyond ridiculous, beyond dumb. This is insanity. The defendant accusing his own defence attorney of murder? I assure you, I'm quite sane. But what possible connection could Mr. Gavin have to the victim? I wasn't aware that I had a connection to Mr. Smith either. Yes, but Mr. Gavin and the victim have never even met. Well, what if they have? Huh? There is a possibility, after all. They may have met that night before the game started. What are you suggesting? Is this the truth Mr. Wright was staying silent about? Well, only one thing to do. Mr. Wright, the defence would like to request that you testify to the court. The defence would like to request no such thing. Mr. Gavin, testimony must relate to the case. How could anything happening before that game of poker be related? I'm not sure I follow, Mr. Gavin. As I explained before, the defence believes that Mr. Reilly... Am I to assume you speak for Mr. Justice in this? He is the defence, not you. Mr. Justice, the matter of Mr. Wright's testimony is up to you. Oh, okay. Does the court, in your opinion, need to hear Mr. Wright's testimony? We need to hear the testimony. This was Mr. Wright's strategy. He was planning this all along. And I intend to see it through. The defence would like to request that Mr. Wright testify to the court. A2, Justice, you would betray me, your teacher? I'm sorry, Mr. Gavin, this isn't about loyalty. This is about the truth. ... Very well. The defendant, Mr. Wright, will take the stand, please. I've got to amend my guide here. Appetite before murder. That evening, Christoph and I had dinner. who sat at the table in this photograph. Shady Smith walked in 5 minutes after Christoph left. When the trap failed, Smith hit the waitress. The girl was knocked out cold and Smith was uncontrollable. I left to call the police. When I returned, he was dead, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. That's when I made another phone call to defence attorney Gavin. Mr. Gavin, you were at the Bosch Bowl Club the night of the murder? I dined with him rather frequently. And he talked to the defendant on the phone directly after the murder? Quite against my will, I had become involved in a murder. I thought I might be in need of a lawyer, so I called him. You were planning this all along, weren't you, right? Just because you wanted to drag me into your little murder trial. The only thing I want is the truth. As I did back then, and now. I thought my office was doing you a favour when we took on your defence. It appears that I was wrong. Very well, the defence may cross-examine the witness. Justice? Sir, he's lying, and you're going to expose him. Understood, sir. Mr. Gavin versus Mr. Wright. This can't end well. Why can't I have a normal trial? Okay, we need to press statement 3 when the trap failed. Oh, I can't skip now. That's weird. I can't, like, you know, skip the first time around. Weird. No, don't matter. Press. About this failed trap. This is the same trap that Miss Olga really mentioned. The plan was simple, elegant, really. You see, we set up a trap of sorts. I was to plant a card in Wright's pocket beforehand, and then deal 5 aces during one of their games. When the hands were revealed, Smith would call him out and search Wright. He would then put out the planted card and the trap would snap shut. You swap the cards! Just like that, the legend would be dashed to pieces. Yep, a harmless prank, in essence. It was by a quirk of fate that I happened to discover it. A quirk? I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. That's the worst, like, plan ever. Why not put it in, like, the back pocket or something like that? They put it... Which pocket did they put it in, really? If it was just like his jacket pocket, then obviously it was going to be found. The card she planted. Yep, I snuck a peek at it and found it was the 5 of hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card. Before the game. Disposed? Where? There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside the bottle. An empty bottle of grape juice. The murder weapon? Yep, I rolled it up and shoved it in. The coloured glass makes it hard to see. Ah, a battle of wits between the deceiver and the would-be deceived. That sounds like terrific drama. Card inside the murder weapon. That's strange. Did the police miss it in their investigation? Maybe I'll take a look. Mr. Wright, the poker head of courtroom number 3 approves of this battle of wits. Please provide your testimony with this new information. I discovered the trap during the game and disposed of the card in the bottle. Progress. Why in the bottle? I perceived my opponent's intent immediately. I'm used to entrapment, you see. I knew what was coming. Ho-ho! So you struck first. I like that. I know every trick in the book. They don't work on me. At least when you get lucky and stick your hand in your pocket, they don't. Okay. Wait, what? Oh, that's a bit weird. Do I actually do that, or is it just saying... Ah, it's really weird. I'll just take a moment here. I'm pretty sure the person who wrote these guides that I'm following added in extra bits that you don't actually have to do to, you know, advance in the game. They just added stuff in that shows extra information that, you know, you can find out about. So there's the part here where it says for me to examine the bottle. I don't actually need to do that. I just need to present the bottle right now. But it says to examine it, but that's only just for like my benefit to know, and doesn't actually advance the game. I'm pretty sure anyway. But okay, I messed up. Did I Did I present it at the wrong... Did I present it at the wrong thing? Or do I actually have to... I don't know. It does. I don't see anything contradictory. Oh, I messed up. I'm so sorry. Did I present it at the wrong statement? Or did I do... Wait. What? Okay, just to be sure, I am actually going to examine the bottle. The bottle is completely empty. Okay, did that. Did I present it at the wrong statement just then, by accident? Did I do that? Did I accidentally present it at the wrong statement? I thought it advanced? I don't know. Mr. Wright, if I may. Yes? I've examined the bottle, and I don't see any card in here. Okay, maybe I did actually have to examine the bottle. I don't know. I can't remember. I do know for a fact that in previous games, when I re-recorded the first game, there was a point where it said, examine this, and like, I didn't have to do that at all. But, whatever. Yeah, there's no card in there. Huh? No? ... What, Mr. Wright? Surely ... isn't all you have to say for yourself. I can't say that I know what happened to the card. I did put it in that bottle, however. Huh? Perhaps a fifth person came and took it out. Oh, and a sixth person could have helped. Mr. Gavin, Mr. Wright is your client. My apologies, Your Honour. I won't have you disparaging our investigation either. We looked inside that bottle. There was nothing. So what's going on? Is Mr. Wright hoodwinking us again? Or did the card just disappear? In any case, please continue the cross-examination. I'm afraid decisive contradictions call for decisive evidence. Oh. Push him harder, Justice. Break him. It's just you and the witness in the ring. Go for the KO. Why do I get the feeling we're not on our client's side anymore? Okay, we're gonna go to statement 5. When I returned, he was dead, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. We present crime photo. Oh, no. Where is it? Crime photo 1. There it is. Mr. Wright, if I may. Yes? Take a look at this photograph at the crime scene. See the victim here? He's wearing a hat. I wouldn't think you could see blood on his forehead. Good point. Justice. Next time you point out an inconsistency, put a little more oomph into it. Mr. Wright, can you explain this to the court? Ah, I forgot to mention something. I was the one who put that hat on his head. Eh? You put the hat on the dead man's head? You wore it for our entire poker game. After calling the police, when I returned to the scene, his head was in full view. Shining bright, just like in this photograph. And I picked his hat up off the floor and put it on his head. Why'd you do a thing like that? All I can say is, I'm sorry. But that's the only thing I touched at the crime scene. So, Missa really didn't see it? It being the victim's, his head? I think not. She was out cold. I believe I was the only one who witnessed his head. Ah, here we go again. Mr. Gavin? Pardon. It just seems that our client is determined to lie his way through this case. Hey, he's still our client, isn't he? I believe that's enough of that. Mr. Gavin? This witness's testimony is more like a travesty. It's riddled with lies. I'm beginning to see how you came to lose your attorney's badge 7 years ago. Well, you certainly have a unique way of treating your clients, Christoph. I never knew. I believe it was you who threw the first stone. Mr. Wright, if you intend to ever tell the truth about this case, it's now or never. Don't be misled, I haven't told a single lie here. Eh? When I noticed the trap, I put the card in the bottle to dispose of it. And when I put the hat on the victim's head, let's just say I had a reason for doing that as well. A reason? That reason is right here. Your cell phone? That night, recall that I spoke with Defence Attorney Gavin after calling the police. Just in case, I recorded our conversation. What's this? Now that we're all here, I see no reason why I shouldn't play it back for the court. Christoph, I seem to be in a bit of trouble. What's this? Game not going well? Something like that. That gentleman who challenged you, he turned out to be good? He turned out to be dead. Someone hit him hard. You mean someone cracked that flawless bone china plate? It wasn't you, was it? Me, please. The cops should be here any minute. I'm in your hands, should it come to that. Bone china plate? A kind of porcelain, very smooth and shiny, and not plate but pate. I believe he was referring to a certain gentleman's balding forehead. Ah, the court appreciates the defendant's discretion in not indicating my forehead. Wait a second, something's not right about that phone call. So after Mr. Gavin ate dinner with you, he left the Borscht Bowl Club? Most certainly. Then how did he know? When did he see this bone china plate? Oh, that's right. Yep. That was when I began to see my good friend in a different light. ... Troubled, I returned to the crime scene. And when I spotted Mrs. Smith's head again, I realised exactly what was wrong. Well, Mr. Gavin, the stage has been set. Perhaps you would like to explain this to the court? Exactly how did you come by your privileged knowledge of the victim's head? ... So, this is your reason. The reason why you put the victim's hat back on. Your point, Mr. Gavin? It's come down to this, has it? Phoenix Wright? Order. I will have order. Mr. Payne. Yes, Your Honour? I believe this court has been left with no other choice. Are you prepared to hear Defence Attorney Gavin's testimony? Well, as the prosecutor, Very well. We'll break for 10 minutes. After which, Mr. Gavin will take the stand for a cross-examination. Are we all clear on that? Crystal clear, Your Honour. Very well, this will be the final recess for the day. I'm just going to amend my guide here. April 20th, 2:32 PM, District Court, Defendant Lobby number 3. Mr. Gavin and Mr. Wright are both in the judge's chamber. Who'd have thought today would turn out like this? May I? Hello? Huh? What? Hello, sir. Please pick a card. What's all this about? Is this one okay? Excellent. I have a message for you. The last hand is about to be played. You'll need a trump card to make it. A trump card? The card you have chosen is magical. Use it wisely, and the game is yours. That's all. An ace. Where do I remember that card from? Mrs. Smith's hand has 3 aces and Mr. Wright's 2. It is 5 aces in all. It is true. I have seen it. The 5th ace. There was cheating, I swear to you. The missing 5th ace. Wait, this blotch of red. Is this blood? You have your trump card. Now it's up to you to cut the deck and draw the truth. My father's fate is in your hands. I know you can do it. This blood-stained card is my trump card for finding the truth. I fell deep into thought as my mind raced to understand what this all meant. That girl, I'd seen her recently, but where? That's when I made the connection. Back then she was in pink and now she's in blue because of Phoenix Wright. Bloody ace added to the court record. April 20th, 2:45 PM, District Court, Courtroom number 2. Court will now reconvene. Defence Attorney Christoph Gavin, will you please take the stand? This is the last testimony of the thing, when we get to it. Now if you would, Mr. Payne. Yes, Your Honour. Will Mr. The witness state his name and occupation? Is this farce necessary, Your Honour? Believe me, far stranger things have gone on in this courtroom. Fine, I'll play along. First, there's one thing we need to have made clear. How did you know about the secret beneath the victim's hat? By secret, I'm guessing he means the fact that Mrs. Smith is bald. Forgive my curiosity, but what is it about this fellow's head? Your Honour seems to have an inordinate interest in it. Hello. I wouldn't call it inordinate, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Wright, what do you think you're doing right? Wow, things sure look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo? Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore that hat all night, never once taken it off except for that one time. That one time being the instant he was hit. Oh, When Mr. Wright returned from reporting the crime, the hat was lying on the floor. Mr. Wright picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, he would have had to be at the scene of the crime at the time of the crime. In other words, you'd have to be the real killer, is what you're trying to say. Da-da-da. Not bad, Apollo. Mr. Gavin, I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the court. What? Oh, I assure you, I had the noblest of intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Yet, I'm afraid in the current situation I see little reason to hide anything. Very well, allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night. Finally, you may begin your testimony. Tell us, how were you involved in the events of that fateful night? Okay, here we go. Last testimony. I'll say it now. That fateful night. It's a long testimony, by the way. The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead, as he appears in the photo. A bald-haired and unconscious girl in white, holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me to be at the time, and so I left. That's when the call came from Wright. So, you witnessed the murder? Better or worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed. Mr. Gavin, may I remind you that you are on Mr. Wright's defence team. Your testimony is clearly disadvantageous to your clients. What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand, after all. So you are, Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through that little window. Mr. Wright? You had to say that, because that was the only probable window of opportunity. Right, Apollo? Oh. Mr. Wright, the defence should do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Mr. Justice, are you prepared? Yes, Your Honour. I can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. This trial is getting weirder and weirder. Okay, so we're going to press statements 1, 2, 3, and 5. That fateful night. Rage since that man troubled me, so I returned to the press. That man, you mean Mr. Smith? He was different from the other customers. His aura, shall we say. I knew he was a serious poker player, but it was more than that. So then you knew the true nature of your client's job? Of course, but I also knew he wasn't engaged in gambling, which would be illegal. Well, it makes sense that he'd know. They were friends after all. Worried from my friend, I returned to the club. You see, I feared this Mr. Smith might be someone coming to settle an old score. I see what happened then. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout press. The little window? You mean the one used to keep watch up the stairs? Yep, a relic of the ancient past. The Black Marketeers used it, I believe. Why did you go through the trouble of peeking in through the window? Wouldn't it have been easier to just open the door and go into the room? I didn't want to upset Wright, you see. Upset Mr. Wright? Yep, what if my fears had been unfounded? I'd be walking in on their match. Bad form, to say the least. So far everything he's saying makes sense. It must have been right after the murder took place, press. How do you know it was right after the murder? Really, no need to shout, Justice. I was just getting to that part in my testimony. There he is. The coolest defence in the West, we know and love. Even when you're standing up there on the witness stand, some things never change. I was afraid you'd change too, right? But you haven't. You and that overbearing personality of yours. With friends like these, who needs enemies? We ignore this one. And repress this one. Those were the only 3 at the scene of the crime. Yep, as far as I saw, at least. Then we're back where we started. The killer was a defendant, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it have been? But why didn't you talk to the police? 2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend. There must have been someone else there at the moment of the crime. Justice, I just said I saw no one, not a soul. But that goes against what Mr. Wright said. Ah yes, this mysterious fourth person, who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose. Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap cards in the victim's hand? Huh? Perhaps you can show us a reason why such a thing would be necessary? How can I show something I can't find myself? Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out was the 5th ace. The 5th ace, right? Well, Mr. Justice, the question of why the killer would swap out a card has been raised. Can you point to a reason? Show evidence? Not yet. We show evidence. It's now or never. The defence would like to present evidence to the court. Evidence showing the reason why a card was swapped out. ... Then go ahead and point out your reason, Mr. Justice. Why did the killer take the 5th ace? We show the bloody ace. My reason is, this. Is that an ace? Why? Why, it's got blood on it. Right next to the spade. What? This is insane. Why wasn't I told about this? Why? Could this be the missing 5th ace? Inconceivable. How could you? What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing. Why is Mr. Gavin so upset? It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl. Oh, that card is mine. That is, I picked it up at the Borscht Ball Club that night after the murder had occurred. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are a stock in trade after all. No, impossible, unacceptable. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? What? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene, the real killer. Allow me to elaborate. What if this trace of blood was the reason? The reason for the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime. Where are you going with this? Take another look at the photo, and at the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen on one of the cards? I suppose. The killer then took the card to hide the blood. Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible. Oh? Right, regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a lawyer. You know what a serious crime it is to conceal evidence. Oh, we can discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You wanted to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene. And now, I've told you. That one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see. This is baseless conjecture, baseless. Oh, I assure you it's quite based. What? It's amazing, really, how a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime. In your head. 3D! I used to have such trouble recording 3D stuff back on my old laptop. Anyway, the murder took place in the hideout. The body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table. And before the killer swapped the card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it in the victim's hand. Given this, there is one decisive problem with this scene. Well, what is it? Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on the card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? Well, it's quite easy, really. Oh, get it right over the V. Well, isn't it the victim's position that's the problem? I don't follow your logic here, Mr. Justice. Well, look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You think that any blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him? Ah! Take a look at the photo again. If he bled in this position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the cards. Why, that's right. So, what does this mean? Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs? Oh man. Apollo, try turning the chair around. Ugh. The chair was facing the other way? It would have to be. So we have to assume that at the time of the murder, the victim's chair was facing away from the table. When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police, which way was the chair facing? When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in this photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. ... Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know now the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Again? Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, whose location on this diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? Whose location creates a contradiction if the victim was facing away? That would be the killer. The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front, sitting where his indicator currently is? I would think it'd be quite hard, yes. Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense. Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall, in the middle of a game? I believe a sufficient reason will soon come to light. What? There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking it on the diagram. What? But there's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. Don't worry, let's think it through and see what we find. We know the victim was facing toward the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer have to be standing to strike our victim from the front? Right there. The killer had to be standing, well, here. You get points for flair, but that's about all you get. Ah, I thought I was onto something there too. I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Why are you claiming the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above? Ha! In simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that at the very moment of the crime... Wait, I know! At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there. What's this now? I mean, that's the only explanation. Right, Mr. Gavin? ... Your Honour, I have a suggestion for the defence. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the hideout, immediately. Bailiff, send a team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard. Ah, Your Honour. What? There's one more thing your men should look for. Please get this to the bailiff. Huh? Ah, yes, I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. Wright. I do my best. But let's forge ahead here, while we wait. Look at the diagram once again. It's been changed. If the killer was standing here at the time of the crime, then this cupboard wasn't here. Which means... Apollo, try moving the cupboard. Thank you. As you can see, the cupboard was the problem. At the time of the murder, it has to have been as shown here. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my. What's this? What is it now? Look at the diagram of the crime scene once more. It appears we found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact. Huh? Oh dang. Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion. Now then, Mr. Justice, please point to the new contradicting indicator. Is it the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness? Which indicator in this diagram contradicts what we know about the crime? Well, we point to this guy here, who can't see shit anymore. About this cupboard. Are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would completely cover up the window to the stairs. Ah! That's right. Someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see in. Someone like Mr. Gavin. What did you say? Oh, is the coolest defense in the West losing his cool? Don't expect me to play along with your little game, right? It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin. And someone was, while the window to that room was blocked by a cupboard. ... So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain to the court exactly where did you witness the crime scene from? Excuse me, Your Honour. Order! This is a court of law, and I will have order. We just now received word from our investigative team at the Bosch Ball Club. They've examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honour. Oh? And what did they find? Well, Your Honour, it turns out there is a secret passage behind it. What? Ah yes, I believe I mentioned something of the sort before. This is one of the tricks to the room many of our regulars know about. I do remember him saying something about that, now that he mentions it. Secret passage is a handy thing to have when you're engaged in the legal goings-on. You never know when you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So if the room has a secret passage, where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses could get away from the cops and enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. Just like our killer. You see where our line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it. That girl wasn't kidding when she said I needed this trump card for the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked, and the victim's hat was off his head for the few minutes between Mrs. Smith's murder and Mr. Wright's return from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin? Come on, say something. ... Huh. Dare I ask what really happened that night? Actually, I think we can probably figure it out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mrs. Smith, a date with destiny. There he crouched, hidden in the secret passage, way behind the cupboard. Holding his breath, waiting for just the right moment. Then the chance came, and he took it. Ah! Eek! What? Why did you do that? Wait here, I'll get help. Miss Olga really was out cold, struck by Mrs. Smith. But his time was soon to come, but Mr. Wright went upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shady Smith, I keep saying Shady or Shady, either one, alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. Then our killer stepped out from the secret passage and into the hideout. The victim must have heard the cupboard sliding aside. He wheeled his chair around to look and... After the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood on the card. He would have, of course, realised the need to destroy the evidence, pardon me. That single spot of blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have noticed the cards on the floor. And the fact that they were all red. Ah. Well, it seems this trial has taken yet another turn. I'm truly sorry I had to see this day come, Mr. Gavin. ... Mr. Gavin? Mr. Payne! Ah! Yes, Your Honour? The prosecution will continue its investigation. As for Mr. Phoenix Wright, the defendant, he is hereby cleared of all suspicion. Quack! Believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin. But I'm afraid circumstances call for me to issue a warrant for arrest immediately. He ain't going down without a fight. Oh, no need to apologise. I rather enjoyed myself. It's not every day you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand. Your point, Mr. Gavin? Frankly, Your Honour, I'm shocked that a person of your calibre would be taken in by such a low-grade parlour trick. Excuse me? The defendant is cleared of all suspicion? This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honour. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilt or innocence here. What he has done is use illegal evidence to put the blame on someone else. And not just anyone else, but me, his own defence attorney. Illegal evidence? Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin, is there still any reason at present to suspect me of wrongdoing? Of course. This bottle, for instance. The bottle of grape juice Mr. Wright was drinking? How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints on the murder weapon? And not just any fingerprints. Am I right, Mr. Payne? Actually, yes. The fingerprints on the bottle were, upside down. I seem to recall this being an issue earlier. The court in this case demand an explanation. I can think of only one reason why one would hold the bottle upside down. And that is to hit someone with the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honour? See how the caught fish squirms to the last. Well, Apollo? Yes? Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle still. But I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation. Just like that. Yeah, just like what? Why would anyone grab a bottle upside down other than to... Don't let him trick you into thinking his explanation is the only legitimate one. Is there really another? Take another look at the court record. I believe you'll find a simple answer there. In plain sight. How about you just say the answer in plain words? It would be hasty to deliver a verdict with unanswered questions indeed. Well, Mr. Justice? Mr. Gavin said that the court in this case demand an explanation. Don't worry, justice won't leave until justice is done. Perhaps the defence would care to enlighten the court. What evidence do you have to explain why the fingerprints on the bottle are upside down? There we go. Olga's photo presents. It's actually easier to show you than explain, Your Honour. Place that bottle on the floor next to your chair. Excuse me? On the floor? Yep, now reach down and pick it up. Without getting out of your chair. See? You naturally go to pick up the bottle by its neck. With your fingerprints upside down. Look at this photograph taken on the night of the murder. The defendant, Mr. Wright, sat here. Playing piano, bottles of grape juice on the floor to the side of his piano bench. He would have naturally picked up the bottles upside down several times. Wow, I can't believe it was that simple. Recall how I did that evening, Christoph? ... I was drinking my usual juice then too. Basically, you used the bottle on the table to do the deed. But then you must have remembered. So you went and picked up one of the bottles from under the piano. And you switched the bottles. You took one of Mr. Wright's bottles and made it look like the murder weapon. Order, order, order. What do you have to say to these charges, Mr. Gavin? Fascinating. So this is the legendary attorney's famed tactic of misdirection. What? You claim that I switched the bottle. Where is your proof? Proof? Well, that's, as I thought, more baseless conjecture. I'm afraid your bottle of proof is quite empty. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Your Honour, when you initiated the investigation of the hideout earlier, did you recall I requested an additional investigation? Ah, yes, I have your memo about that here. Retrieve the bottles from under the piano at the Borsbow Club. And here's one of the bottles in question. Heh, what, you're going to dust that for fingerprints too? Would be surprised if any were on that but his. Mr. Gavin probably wouldn't make such a novice mistake, true. That bottle won't bear a trace of anything. Say, Apollo? Yes? Why don't you go ahead and examine that bottle? But why? Just humour me. Mr. Wright, that bottle will solve this case once and for all. What? That's some bottle. There we go this way. Let's just zoom in for added effects. What's that? There's something inside the bottle. What's this? That card, it can't be. Recall that unpleasant woman's testimony for a moment. Miss Olga, really? Yep, our little swindling Devochka. That night I planted the card like I was supposed to, and Wright lost the last hand just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. The planted card was gone. The trap failed. Wait, this isn't... You're telling me that this is the planted card you disposed of? The one you mentioned in this piece of testimony? I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. Yes, I snuck a peek at it and found it was the 5 of hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card before the game. Disposed? Where? There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside the bottle. The 5 of hearts. This is the card. The bottles were swapped. And the only one who could have done that was the 4th person in the club that night. You, Mr. Christoph Gavin. Earthquake! Lots of ... dots. From everyone. Except Phoenix Wright. That is all. Is this your idea of revenge, Phoenix Wright? Revenge? Revenge for the events that took away your attorney's badge 7 years ago? ... My past is like my logic, straight and true. Nothing's changed. All I did was point the finger of justice in the proper direction. Fine. I'm glad we could have this little tete-a-tete, right? ... This is insane! What about me? Don't I get to prosecute anyone? I believe this time we've finally come to the end of our trial. Mr. Payne, do you have a report for us on Christoph Gavin? He's admitted everything. We're processing his arrest now. I see. Still, one has to wonder why he would do such a thing. He didn't even have a connection to the victim, did he? None that we know of. Mr. Wright, have you anything to add? ... I'm afraid I can't shed any more light on the matter. About this victim, Mr. Shady Smith? His occupation was listed as traveller. An odd profession to be sure, and that's all we know about him. I'll arrange a follow-up investigation, Your Honour. Good. Mr. Wright? Yes? 7 years, and you still haven't lost your touch. Christoph Gavin was a man with much significance for me, both as a friend and a lawyer. He was extremely talented, to be sure. I needed 2 things before I could confront him. The first was a place where no injustice would be tolerated, this courtroom. The second was a man who would tolerate no injustice. In other words, a defence attorney. You, Apollo. Me? A dark time is coming for our legal system. A twisting of justice brought on by our very own court system. We have to set it right. Mr. Wright. Our work lies ahead of us, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. Well, this seems like a good time to announce the verdict. This court finds the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright, not guilty! Yay! Court is adjourned. We won! We won! Whoop whoop! April 20th, 4:28 PM, District Court, Defendant Lobby number 3. Thanks, Apollo. You came through, just like I thought you would. Pretty sure I didn't do a thing in there. It was you who cornered Mr. Gav, the killer. I couldn't have done it by myself. You sensed it too today, didn't you? Your ability. Ability? Yep, a sensitivity I lack. You'll come to understand it soon enough. Wait, what if he means... I have one question for the witness then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is this true? Of course it's true. What's this weird vibe I'm getting? What was that, Mr. Wright? You'll have to find the answer to that question yourself. The answer? Right. Today was full of questions without answers, most of them about Mr. Gavin. What possible reason could he have to commit murder? Perhaps you'll learn that in the days to come. Huh? Wait, you don't, do you? Don't know, do you? This locket is the key. Huh? Oh, that reminds me. I met the girl whose picture is in your locket. Your daughter, right? That's right. She's my daughter. You know, you were right about this locket. Huh? I took this off his neck the night he died. But it looks like our dear Russian scam artist saw me. So the truth is, this locket really did belong to him. Wait, but that's perjury. You justified, you said that locket was yours. I said no such thing, actually. Huh? I merely said that it was a locket with my daughter's picture inside. A sort of distinction, but a distinction nonetheless. And it's the truth. Wait, but then, why? Why was the victim wearing a locket with a picture of your daughter inside it? Sometimes the straightest path to the truth isn't the best one. Give it time. You're still just getting started with your career. Speaking of which, I maybe have a job. I work for Gavin Law Offices after all. Still can't believe I just saw Mr. Gavin get led away in handcuffs. Apollo. Yes? How about coming to work for me? Nah? You mean the Wright & Co. Law Offices? I mean, there's not a single attorney in my generation that doesn't know it. I can't imagine that to be true, but... Wait, but didn't you... You're not a... Oh, I turned in my badge, yes. I'm not an attorney anymore. That incident 7 years ago. That legendary trial. And at the middle of it all was one man, Phoenix Wright. The case reached its sad conclusion and he left law for good. Have you ever thought about going back to the courts? I'm not qualified to stand in the court of law, I'm afraid. Didn't you notice in today's trial? There was a single piece of forged evidence. Forged evidence? What are you talking about? I'm talking about evidence that shouldn't have existed. A naughty magician's trick. Huh. One piece of evidence struck me as odd, it's true. It just seemed, well, too perfect. I'll bet this was the forged evidence. I think we all know what it was. You mean this, don't you? I got this from your daughter, Mr. Wright. Yep, that card couldn't have been found at the crime scene. Why? Because the killer took it with him when he left, leaving the wrong card in its place, luckily for us. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene, the real killer. My verdict was already handed down 7 years ago. Then you really... Yep, I forged this card. One look at the crime scene should have told you it wasn't real. But you can't do something like that and call yourself an attorney. Who's calling themselves an attorney? Apollo? So it's true. The rumour is true. 7 years ago. None of that matters much now, does it? I guess. I punched him. It's your story from here on out, Apollo. Perhaps I could help you turn the next page. My office's address. Drop in if you like. Mr. Wright. Oh, about your uppercut. Try railing and take that next time. I find it packs a little more punch. And Apollo, thanks for today. I had a good time. And with that, Mr. Wright walked out the door. And that's how my first trial ended. A lot of mysteries went unsolved. And at the time, I had no idea they were all related. Every mystery that day, connected by a single thread of logic. I'd find that out soon enough. My name is Apollo Justice, attorney at law. This is how my story begins. The end! Woo! That's the end of the first case, Turnabout Trump. So next time will be Turnabout Corner. So, wow, he actually gave Apollo forged evidence to use, and apparently there's a rumour that it was forged evidence that made him lose his badge 7 years ago. Ooh, naughty naughty Phoenix Wright. Naughty naughty. Anyway, This all really connects a lot more to the rest of the cases. There are, I think, I know for definitely there's one like filler case that doesn't connect to the rest of the overall story of the entire game. I think there's just one. I think it's just one case, and there's 4 cases, and I think there's one, and it's the next case that doesn't really relate much to the overall story. But the other 2, the last 2, I think do connect like pretty well with the story. Story. Anyway, thank you all for watching. That was Turnabout Trump. Next time we'll be doing Turnabout Corner, and we'll see how this filler case goes. So, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.